It's 6 o'clock. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So why don't we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Video flag.
Virtual flag.
There you go. Okay, I'll have to get you guys a flag.
We have one song. I think it's in there.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. So the next item, public comments on items not on the agenda. I didn't see anybody here to do that. The next item is approval of the minutes from.
I move to approve the minutes.
So one question, so regarding the investment policy, what it says, we defer to the firm to come back?
Yeah.
Are they gonna come back to us?
Yeah,
or-
so that's actually a great question that I was gonna provide an update later on, but we'll do it right now. It's perfect. They did take a look at our investment policy and have no suggested changes as of now. So that may change in the future. If it does, we'll certainly come back with any suggested changes. They didn't see any issues with the current policy that they'd like to address.
Sounds good.
Are they handling the treasury function? That's what we discussed with them, that they were going to handle the treasury function.
So we are funding the MPTA, and we have not decided a detailed plan for investment.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
So which function was it that the commission was needing them to?
Well, what they agreed to have was the classic treasury function. The classic treasury function is where they manage the cash. You get lumps of cash 2 times a year and then sporadic. And then what we can do is, I would assume they would do a distribution of when that cash occurs. Because do you get it as a lump from the county, or do you just get it as it comes in?
Both, I mean, so that we have certain revenues that come in from the county, those are generally a few times a year. Those are the big payments, obviously, and then, of course, we have our day-to-day revenues that come in, permits and.
But for the property tax, you get property tax in December, does it come as one check, or does it come in as each payer pays?
No, I mean, it's not one check, but it's not. a
Separate
mini check.
by
It's-
4.
Yeah, it's four times a year.
And I assume then there's a predictable range when that cash comes in.
Yes.
So what a treasury function would do is they would look at that, those funds, look at each of the projects on your burn rate, match those up. And since we're talking tens of millions of dollars, you get that 4.2, Tony? 4.2% treasury rate, or whatever they choose to invest in. And so then they can roll over the bonds based on that cash flow. You can do a normal distribution for each one of those payment periods, and you can do a probability on that. And you can free up literally tens of millions of dollars. And that's why we've been talking about the treasury function for quite some time. And that's why we asked if you guys were doing the treasury function.
Right. We'll talk with them
Okay.
about it,
Will you report to us in the next meeting?
if we can get an answer, yes, or it may be.
Well,
Yeah.
they were more than willing, and we brought them on, we talked to them about the treasury function, they were very excited about it. Because it's a benefit to them, they get more money to invest. So they totally do it, and I'm sure they have tools much more sophisticated than what I proposed.
Yeah, it may be the June meeting, since Jesse is swamped with budget, and that's, we gotta get that to you at the next meeting, so that's what should be focused on, but we'll talk with them and come up with strategy.
Good question. Anything else on the minutes? Do I hear a second?
Sure. Second.
Do I hear a second?
Okay. Commissioner Jane,
Approved.
Commissioner Claris,
Approved.
Commissioner Jane, Commissioner Fowler,
Approved.
Vice Chair Richmond, approved, and Chair Ottis.
Approved.
That's a unanimously.
Great. So the second item on the agenda then is the draft fiscal year 2025-26 capital improvements and maintenance programs.
Yeah, let me, call up presentation, and while that's happening, you will notice we have a number of, esteemed guests in attendance. So very quickly, I'll make some introductions. We have Scott Reeves, who is our, what's your title now?
Project manager, well, CIP manager.
CIP manager, he is in the Parks Department, and handles a number of our larger parks projects and some of our other projects that we just kind of throw his way.
So he's handling the Lacey building?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so Scott is in charge of the Lacey project, the EOC, some other projects. Christina Sun, who is our, your title?
Transportation manager.
Transportation manager, handling a lot of our streets projects and, a big chunk of the projects that you'll see. And then we have Aida Fairman, who is our public works director as well. They're here to answer questions about specific projects, because I won't be able to. So they're here, for that. So, as I get started with the presentation, I do want to say, so look at this as sort of, I want to call it the second draft of the upcoming CIMMP. Or if I say CIP, know that means the same thing. So, and I say second draft because staff, we got together, we came up with all the projects that need to be done. And there were a large number of them. We then narrowed it down, prioritized, moved some projects to future years, based on, what we thought we might be able to get done in the coming year versus, projects that could wait a little bit. And we'll have a conversation today, and then we'll take questions, feedback that you have. We're going to do some further refinement because, as you can see, there are currently 57 projects that are identified. That is a lot, especially for a city our size. And it's approximately $25.3 million. That's across various funds. That is a lot for a city our size. And so we'll go and have some further conversations about, what realistically can get done in the coming year, what needs to be moved out.
So does that mean the 23 million is your budget, or is that talk about those 57 will cost?
It's what we will spend on those 57 projects in the future. So that does not include monies that have already been spent in prior years.
What future does that entail? Is it then in the current fiscal
In the
year?
current fiscal year, or in the upcoming fiscal year.
So it's just
25,
26,
26, yes.
got
So just 25, 26, does not include funding for projects that we've already spent. So for example, I mentioned the EOC, there is funding for next year, but that does not include all the funds that have already been spent.
Those are additional funds.
Right. So we'll continue to refine and narrow down what actually is presented to and recommended to the city council. So don't be alarmed by 57 and don't be alarmed by 25.3. Those will be reduced in the future. And as I mentioned, this does include some projects that are currently underway. It does not include projects that we anticipate completing in the current fiscal year. So a project, for example, the Lacey project, we anticipate being done this current year, fiscal year, fingers crossed.
I heard it, it's good.
So there's no, so you won't find that project listed because we anticipate that being done and finished by June 30th. But it does include projects that.
How do you look at it from a cash flow standpoint? Because obviously there is, the cash goes out after the completion of the project, and I'm sure there's progress payments along the way.
Yeah. I'll let Jesse correct me, but if the funds are encumbered, but not spent, we will roll them over to the next year and then they'll be spent out of those encumbered funds. Previous.
Are those encumbered funds available for a treasury function to invest?
That's a technical question for somebody else.
Why don't you take that as an action to find out, because we're talking serious money here.
It potentially could be, but typically if we've encumbered the funds, it's because we have a contract signed and we're
Sure.
making payments on it, right? And so we want to make sure that the funds are available, readily available.
Buy a 3-year bond.
Okay, so, as we go through, I'm gonna highlight some of the projects. I will start by saying, I didn't include in the presentation, I didn't include any projects that were less than $100,000. Those seem small enough dollar amounts that I think you all wouldn't want to spend too much time on them.
So out of the 57, how many are less than 100,000?
I didn't count.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is it-
We can count as we
No,
go.
no, it's
I
fine.
don't know.
I was just curious to know how it was.
And so the way I've organized them is different than the way you have them on the sheet. They're kind of just listed. I have broken them into, so the city council has identified 5 goal/priority areas for the coming year. So I've identified projects or, grouped them into the council priority areas. I'm not gonna go through every single project that's on every single slide. I'll just highlight a few. Of course, if you have any questions, jump in and we can discuss.
So those are the top 5 projects from the council? These?
No, sorry.
Okay,
So the title, so public safety, that's their number
Gotcha.
1 goal
Gotcha.
priority area.
Right.
So
okay.
under public safety, we've identified these projects that fall in that category.
Is 99 Fremont gonna be dormitories? Are you gonna have also dormitories? Because there was talk putting a shower in there, putting some sleeping quarters, and so that the police could stay overnight.
So there will be some sleeping areas, there'll be report writing areas, there'll be interview rooms, yeah.
Okay, right. It'll be a little kitchen.
And then one other thing that you'll see later on is some of the projects maybe fall under multiple council priorities, but I've only placed them under 1 just so that we're not repeating information. So under public safety, of course, we just discussed 999 Fremont. There are a couple of projects related to the fire stations, in particular the roof over at the Almond Fire Station is in desperate need of replacement. And then some other site improvements to make the fire stations more functional. Of course, the county fire operates out of those, but those are the city's buildings and land, and so they'll make small, minor improvements, but it's up to us to make the larger improvements. One thing you'll notice is not on here is a new police station, which of course I think is in the front of just about everybody's minds. And as we move forward, of course, we're anticipating and making plans for that, but as there's no project identified and no funding identified for the coming year, it's not on. But if council makes decisions in the future, that may change.
I've been through this process before, so can you tell me how you decided on a funding source for a project? Like why is the emergency operations system part?
Yeah, so that's a great question for Scott. I will say that's just the funding that's left. And I'm assuming it's related to the generator, which is over on the other side of the theater in the park area, and as well as, other.
It's associated with our park and move because it's a facility, which falls under the umbrella of our Parks and Rec fund.
So the original emergency operations center came from a capital improvement or something, or? Because I was looking at it, it was such a big number, it was like $3 million.
Yeah, so a lot of that came from our CIP fund, so the
Oh.
general fund.
Okay.
Typically, we like to spend restricted dollars first and then our general fund dollars last. In this instance, we would identify some funds that could, or some areas of the project that could use the in the park funds, for it.
Yeah, so does the last 600 grand get you to the finish line? And then the other thing that looked odd about, I'm sure there's an explanation, but it's 3 million of legacy spending, but 70,000 this year, and then 600,000 next year. That just looks wrong. No, it says the fiscal year 25 budget was $68,000, and then you want 600 more to get done. You must have spent more than $60,000 in fiscal 25, because they've been working away over by the park, right?
Yes, we certainly have.
So the timing must not, in any event, ballpark $3.5 million a year done.
Correct. Yep.
And PG&E turns the lights out and there's an earthquake and whatnot, you actually can operate. Okay.
And my guess is, the nearly $3 million was approved and appropriated in the prior year, and then some of that was rolled over to the current fiscal year. Because you're right, they've definitely done more than $70,000 worth of work in the current fiscal year.
Yeah, probably last 6 weeks, right? Because they're trying to get done. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But the end is in sight.
Yes, sir. And the big holdup on that project is the generator, delivery of the generator, just. That's been driving the finish line for that project. The
Out of
next,
curiosity, when are the generators gonna be here?
For EOC, mid-August is when it's forecasted,
Oh.
August 19th, and then we have 4 weeks of installation and commissioning, so by mid-September, we should have our operable system.
Awesome.
the next priority area that council identified was related to business communities. In particular, they wanted us to make some improvements to the downtown. The big one on there is the parking lot resurfacing. That is for plazas 5 and 6. 4, 5, and 6. Those are the 3 plazas between Main and State Streets. And so that'll resurface those, make some new configurations and some other improvements to those parking lots. And then there's some other projects that will be related to downtown that are in other categories, as you'll see. Here.
What is the downtown lighting, cabinet? What does that mean?
Basically, what's going on is this existing control cabinets for the downtown lighting is obsolete.
Okay,
And it's making it more difficult for us to obtain materials to keep maintaining that. So ultimately, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and replace the existing cabinets that controls all the lights in the downtown core.
okay.
Out of curiosity, how old is the legacy equipment?
The newest one, from what I understand, was about the 80s.
Oh, that's pretty good. We got that kind of time.
So
If that's the case. we got
So
plenty.
it's, we're running into numerous issues. It's not just the control cabinets now that's causing the issues. A lot of conduits that was installed has failed because it's the old galvanized pipe. So it has failed completely. And if we have a break in the line, we have no means of replacing that line anymore. So we need to go through and go ahead and replace those lines at the same time.
I assume they're using something like polyethylene.
It probably be this.
Okay. The next category is circulation, safety, and efficiency. This is, primarily our streets projects. The big portion of that is our street resurfacing, our striping, fixing the roads, making repairs. But there are a couple others. Let me back up. Which will include various safe routes to school projects, making it safer for the kids as they're trying to get to school, which is a priority focus of the council. We also have a couple other projects, the Fremont Avenue pedestrian bridge, which feels like it has been a project since before I got here.
That bridge is
Which is a long time.
Which
ridden my
bridge?
bike over it.
So, if you're familiar with, as you're coming out of Loyola Corners, there's the bridge that goes over the little creek there. There's a pedestrian bridge just to the.
To the left, it is going towards Sunnyvale.
Yeah, so to the north, it's a little pedestrian bridge.
I thought we put a bunch of money into that while ago.
No, what we've been doing all the summer is been maintaining it while we go through the process. Right now, we are talking to the State Water Control Board and Fish and Wildlife. And
There's a lot.
Yeah, if you talk to the Fish and Wildlife, you should talk to them in the summer when there's no water.
And then the other one I wanted to highlight is the Cristo Rey guardrail. We do have I think a single guardrail in the city. It's on Cristo Rey. It's in need of desperate need of repairs. So,
So real quick, the San Antonio Road Complete Street Projects, so what is that exactly again? I know you've told us
the
before.
project consisted of installing a class 4 bike lane on both sides of San Antonio. The funding is funded by 88.53 is funded by the federal government. The remaining is on the city as a match. We have started the process of getting authorization from the federal highway to start expending the money. We're also hearing a lot of rumblings about the questionability of if the money is really going to be available. So we're being a little cautious in how we proceed with this. We're not rushing into it. We're doing it very slowly, just in case they decide to yank the money off of us. If that's the case, we don't want to be stuck with the bill.
Yeah, I think that's very wise.
the 1.4 is the city's portion, the bulk of it is city said will come from.
When will you have some clarity or certainty?
About 4 years, the next president. We don't know because I'm getting mixed information from whoever I ask. I'm getting notice from the Federal Highway Administration saying that they're reevaluating all projects on a project basis. When I speak to the lobbyist basically states that this current administration really wants infrastructure construction done. So this is one of those type of projects where they really want it done. But at the same time, because there's a bicycle component, that's the one that's causing a little bit of a doubt on which direction is the federal government gonna go.
Yeah, sign up for diesel trucks to get your money.
Is there a possibility we keep on spending money slowly for months?
Well, the whole thing is, I'm not rushing to try to ask for the money. I'm going through the process of asking for the money. Just the notice that I received from the federal government was about a month old. So things change on a regular basis. So they're asking for 2 more documents for me to submit. I've already asked the Air Quality Management District for a concurrence. I just need to do some calculation and resubmit to try to get authorization. Once that authorization is set, we have the authorization to proceed with the spending of the money. But the concern is they give us an authorization to proceed with the money, and then they say the project is canceled. We need to pull back everything.
But we're not spending funds of the 1.4 million until we have the authorization.
Authorization or money?
Yeah, I think the wise thing to
So the last question, so the traffic and pedestrian system maintenance, is that the lighted crosswalks?
That is, that project consists of our third-party contractor that works with us. It's not just the in-ground flashers that you're talking about. It's also the flashers on signs. Any improvements or maintenance that needs to be done on our traffic control
Yeah, because
system.
I noticed the ground ones are.
Those are obsolete.
Yeah.
The manufacturer is no longer around.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're moving away from the in-ground. We're actually putting it on the signs, the flashers. The Federal Highway Administration has also revamped their requirements. So the LED lights cannot be on the sign itself. You have to have a separate flasher with it. So we're trying to bring all our system into compliance. So the $370,000 is what we typically pay our third-party contractor to maintain our existing system.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
The next council priority area is environmental sustainability. The one project that I'm really excited about on this one is the downtown lighting improvements. As I mentioned earlier, some of these projects span multiple priority areas. This is certainly one of them. The downtown lighting improvements is replacing all of our streetlights. with solar. So the ones that are currently electrical or, hardwired for electrical, we're replacing them with solar. We've already begun the work on that. I don't know how many have been replaced. If you haven't noticed, it's actually great because the intent was to, make it so it was, similar and, the lighting was, comparable and, like I said, it's, gone on. And you don't know how many,
It's about 30.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
Have been replaced so far. There will still be some that will be hardwired. Those will be the ones at the intersections, but everything else will be, completely solar.
How long does this battery last on a picture like?
Good question. But we've had them up through the winter and they function all throughout the winter and they have the solar generator panels basically on the.
Yeah, I understand that, but they would have a battery, on them. Can you change the battery? Out, can you swap it out over time? Because that's usually what goes, is the battery, and after 5 to 10 years, all batteries die.
I'd have to ask about that. And then the other one, that I'm also excited about is the Grant Park Solar. This will, allow the buildings down there to be used, as cooling centers or heating centers, warming centers, if you want to call them. Or if we have extended blackouts or power outages, folks can come and charge devices and whatnot. Have the solar panels and the batteries to work on. So that would be a great improvement for the event.
What's the caretaker's house?
So the caretaker house is in Redwood Grove. If, right as you enter off of, when you walk by as you come from Shop Park, it's the building that's right on the creek. That I think is in danger of falling into the creek, every single moment that passes that it's still there. So I put it under environmental sustainability because it will make sure that we can restore that area and keep it out of the waterway, which I think will be good. Okay, and then the last priority area that the council identified is housing, including parks. One area of the goal that the council highlighted is, of course, increasing the city's housing stock across all income levels, but also preserving, maintaining, and increasing our green park and green space. And so we have a number of parks projects that hopefully will accomplish that goal. Of course, the big one is the downtown park that we're currently designing right now. That will be in Plaza 1, which is southwest of Main Street between 1st and 2nd Street. We have a couple of playgrounds that are in desperate need of replacement. And so we should have more than a couple that are in desperate need of replacement, but we're going to try to tackle 2 this coming year at Shop Park and Grant Park. You'll notice that there are a lot of various projects at Grant Park. All told, it's between $1.2 and $1.3 million that the city will invest in Grant Park.
What kind of pathway are you going to put through Grant Park?
Well, so there already is a pathway.
Replacements.
Must need
Yeah.
to be
So it's supposed to be a replacement,
Yeah,
which is kind of verbal, no?
Correct, we have an inventory of pathways that need to be addressed and we're
Yeah, the
doing,
basketball court can use some help.
yeah, and actually that's on the list separately as well, from the pathways, yep.
One of the backboards is gone.
Okay, and then there's the projects that don't really fit in any of the 5 council
I'm
priorities.
sorry, that Hazen House, which is.
Halsey
House.
Halsey House,
Halsey House is the other building that's in Redwood Grove.
okay.
The funding for this is related to doing environmental studies as well as
The maintenance fund,
I was gonna say maintenance, preservation.
Preservation
no
of
sales,
status quo, right, no
Yeah.
further deterioration.
Until, yeah, until a decision is made on what to do with that building. Okay. So then there are the projects that are, general government. These are projects that don't really fall under a council priority, but have been identified as needs for the city. The first one is the main library construction, which is not related to the construction that's going on right now. Right now, they're replacing the roof. The county library district is actually paying and managing that project. This will be interior improvements, related to functionality and, flexible use, etc.
When you say, who's granting the grants?
So this one is coming, so for the main library, that's coming from NCLA, which is a separate, JPA that, comes out of Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. It shows up on your tax bill each year, and so they're paying for the improvements to the library.
But this is not the patent.
No, this is not the patio.
What does NCLA stand for?
NCLA stands for North County Library Board. We also have, some improvements out at Woodland Library. That is being paid for by, the Los Altos Library Endowment. So the city is contributing a small portion, but, that group is paying for those improvements there.
What are they planning on doing to the Woodland?
They're making improvements to the patio area, so there's more outdoor
Oh, that'd
space.
be nice. They've got a lot of land around it, so that's good.
And then the one I know all of you are excited about, I am excited about, Jesse is getting excited about is the new financial system, which, should be implemented and it will go live on July 1, but there will still be some further implementation and dollars associated to that. And then another generator that we're replacing. We're really excited about the one here because it'll be our first generator from this century. And so all of the other generators are in desperate need of replacement and fixing, and so this would be one for City Hall.
Do people periodically just turn them on to see if they work?
Our maintenance staff does regular maintenance on them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in fact, we're having to activate them as part of our Lacey project. We're going down for PG.
Are they diesel?
They're fuel based. I can't I'm not sure if they're diesel. or not.
Diesel or natural gas?
I don't know.
Um,
But I know that we just, this past week, we've been doing service maintenance on them.
The reason I ask is if it's diesel and you're storing diesel ages.
Yep. Yeah, no, there's
There's
regular maintenance for.
Yeah.
them.
fun stuff like
Yeah.
that.
What did general plan mean?
Okay, so the city has a general plan, which is sort of overarching document guides, decisions that the city makes. It is the last, well, it has various elements that are updated. You heard about the housing element that was updated, a couple of years ago. That's part of the general plan. The rest of the general plan, has not been updated since I think about 2002 or 2003. These dollars are going to the, it's the safety element. The safety element, which is so the state requires us to do the housing element every 7 years, 8 years. And then, we have to update the safety element after we do the housing element. So we're currently updating the safety element. And so that's what the bulk of those dollars are. Okay. And then after that, we'll look at the rest of the general.
Last but not least is kind of what are the IT initiatives?
Yeah, so, those are various, projects that are related to the city's IT infrastructure. A big portion of that will actually go to the new servers that will be installed at the Lacey building. And the various switches and devices that are connected to that. There's also replacement of outdated computers, tablets, and then there
You
various.
guys have a lot of subscriptions to a lot of software.
We have a fair amount. Those are generally found in the operating budget, not this.
How about the migration to the cloud? Is there?
I mean, so we do have a number of our servers are cloud-based, so we are, putting those systems that can go into the cloud, into the cloud. Of course, we have to have some that are in our own networks and servers, and so, like I say, those are primarily housed in the PD, and so we're gonna move some over to the new Lacey building, which will be, I hate to say it, more secure than the current location in the.
No, I've been to the current location, moving it to almost Canterbury would be a distinct improvement. So that part is good. What is the limiting factor of putting most of that in the cloud?
So I'd have to, I'm not the expert on it, but I do know that there are some that, particularly PD systems that have to be more secure than, we have to host them internally ourselves rather than having the data be hosted by somebody else. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, if you get data, you can ask them that, because you can put classified data in the cloud and it can be at the TS level, and I doubt the stuff we've got has to be there. I mean, Microsoft and Amazon have and you can address to that. Is your guys secure?
Conflict of interest.
Oh, he's got a conflict of interest. Okay. But yeah, your stuff's pretty good.
Community center cafe, is it
Uh-huh.
going to be for profit or is it event only?
No, so, it will be run by so it won't be a for-profit, but it will be, it's we have a third-party vendor that is gonna come and operate the cafe right across the lobby here. They will pay us a certain portion, and so for the city, it will be neutral, and then they'll have their costs. The group, they currently have, I think it's in Palo Alto, they operate.
Mitchell Park, it's Ada's Cafe.
And that big community center building there, at Mitchell Park.
Correct, yeah, right next to the
Nice
next door.
And so the funding, the 165,000 is related to improvements to that space over there.
I assume adding kitchens.
Be a light kitchen, it's sinks, warming devices, there's a display unit for selling products and changing out some of the windows.
Just to, at the end, ballpark, how much money is sitting in Park and Rec right now?
She's gonna look that up while I go to Aida's favorite category, which is sewer projects. These are all the projects that have been identified as needed to keep our sewer system healthy, in good repair and operating. And these are all funded through the sewer fund, which,
What does root foaming mean?
Yeah, root forming is the treatment. So a product is used, put into the pipes to inhibit the growth of roots because they
okay.
cause blockages. So then it's put in there and then the roots will not grow, anymore.
roots are incredibly strong when we get into the pipes.
Oh, I just
Blockage,
spent
so-
many thousands of dollars on replacing. I understand. I just wonder if I should be doing.
What about document scanning?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, so there's several hard copy as-builts and plans in sewers that need to be scanned so they can be easily accessible by all the city staff. So that's part of that.
These are all very old documents that have never been digitized. Okay, Inwood Park Fund.
It has 19 million in fund balance.
With 19 million parking lot? Wow.
You have all the 5150 money, or is there more that comes when they get their certificate of occupancy?
That's a good question. We'll have to ask development services. I
Okay.
believe we've got.
Got it all, that's why you have 19 million, right, because it's 8 or 10, whatever the big chunk was from there. All right, so, and then John, when I think about this big picture, right, I think about, this is all well and good, but there's really 3 monster projects in my mind, maybe I'm counting differently, police station, park, with the underground parking over here, and the theater. And when you think about those, you're not spending anything on the police station yet. That's kind of the big number that's out there. And where you put it. With the park over here, you've got some initial money in here, whatever it was, real money to get going on that. And on the theater so far, it's the $300,000 or $400,000 that's been put up to try to prime a development function.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else people are talking about that anywhere near the scale of those?
I mean, those really are the big ones. Of course, we mentioned a couple that potentially could be big dollar amounts, the San Antonio Road project, if that comes through, but of course, that'll be primarily federal and, restricted funds. I'm not looking at the main library, but again, that's coming
Some of the source and San Antonio Road, I mean,
Yeah,
like, it's a political question, but I can't imagine you go spend 10 or 11 million dollars there. You'd spend $1.5 million because the feds give you 8.5, but relative to those other priorities, it's not a spend. I think we do, but
Is it politically possible to ask this question with regard to the theater? Is it possible for us to take the 300,000, rent the Mountain View Theater for God knows how long, and satisfy the intent and not have to spend the God knows how much money we're going to spend?
that would be a question for not the five of us.
Yeah.
The five that sit on the dais.
Yeah, I figured as much.
I just view that 300 grand as challenge money. So, but it's all fine. If somebody near here wants to feel better, by putting up 30 million, it's fine. It is what it is. Enough said.
So I said this is a lot better, much improved version compared to a year ago when we reviewed the CIP plan. That was not as accessible. This is a lot more accessible. So thank you. Do you have in mind an upper bound on this 25 million that by the time you're done trimming, what will that number look like?
Not yet. A lot of it is gonna be dependent on, staffing to actually carry out the projects. We'll look at it and say, okay, we have, I think we had parks projects, we had 10 to 12 parks projects. Scott is fantastic, but he's one person. How many can he actually accomplish? Are there other resources that we can bring in? And that will lower it. A big portion of it is going to be where we end up with our operating budget, because those are general fund dollars typically, and so if we're spending general fund dollars on the CIP, we may need to lower what is spent out of the CIP, but we won't do that until we finish putting together the operating budget, which is still at least a couple weeks away. So it will do. I don't want to say this is the ideal number because again, all of these projects are needed. And so, if we can get them done in the coming year, that will save us money in the future. Whereas if we push them out, then we'll just see the cost.
So I'm coming at it from a different direction. For fiscal 24-25, in the data that you circulated in the agenda packet, you had almost $18 million for the plan, but almost half of that is rolling over to the fiscal 25-26. So the actual spend was slightly more than 9 million. Now I look at 25 million number as a proposed, and even if it's cut down to, I don't know, 20 million or something, that's still a huge jump.
It's a lot.
So is that realistic? Is that, maybe something unusual happened during 24-25?
No, that's a great question. I mean, these three are the experts in what they can get done. I will say I'm skeptical of $25 million getting done next year, and so that's why we're gonna work together as a team to figure out what the exact number is. So you're right, we spent 9 million last year, then we may be able to do more than that, but certainly multiplying that by almost 3 may not be released.
So then,
What is the previous year's spending? Because that adds up to 48 million.
Yeah, so some of these projects, it's tough because some of the projects are ongoing projects. So for example, if you look at the street resurfacing,
It's about 6 million.
right, the,
There's about 6 million in
Yeah.
annual streets.
so the annual streets, about $6 million in that, but that's, we do a different project each year, related to that, right? So, it's a little bit tricky because some of these projects are ongoing. For example, the annual structural reach replacement, that's a sewer project that happens every year. And so the project itself, WW-01002, has, spent over $9.5 million over probably a decade worth of projects, right? So it's a little tricky. We wanted to for sure include the prior year spending because there are certain projects, for example, the EOC, that if we said, oh, we're gonna spend $600,000, the project budget for next year is only $600,000, but in reality, it's nearly $3.7 million is the overall project budget, right? So we wanted to include prior year spending, but it's a little tricky when you get to the annual projects that happen.
You might consider doing milestone spending for each of the projects so you can see it. You could do it in a Gantt chart where you do milestone spendings and then as the schedule goes here. And you can then see what all your cash flow is. And you can see what your estimates complete. And then you can assign bodies. Because you have several constraints. You have a body constraint, how many project managers or how many other people. And they need to be time based, plus the cash flow as well. You might find that a benefit to do that.
Is it worth adding more columns for future budget years? Because I was hoping to like take this and plan like you were saying, a budget for 5 years into the future.
Yeah, and that will happen as part of the 5-year plan. Typically, when we present it to the council, it is a 5-year plan, so it will have those other projects that got pushed out, or if these projects, are going to extend on into 26, 27, it will include the funding for those years as well.
Right, but to DBAT's point, we guys got rid of all the carryover. We were never gonna actually do the stuff, so it's way cleaner and easier to understand rather than saying in the mid-70s, we decided to do it and it's still on the list, so I think it's much easier to understand.
And I will say, so staff, the folks sitting here have done a great job of looking at projects that were previously approved and saying, okay, it was approved at this dollar amount, but we're actually only going to spend this much and really refining and determining the appropriate dollar amount so that we weren't carrying over millions of dollars that we were never going to spend.
well, given your constraints on resources and things, are you gonna be able to prioritize what you're gonna work on based on those constraints?
Yeah, and that's one thing that we'll do is look at the list, say, okay, well, bad example, but we have these 5 projects, we can only do 4, which are the highest priorities, and narrow it down. We'll also look at, are there projects that we might be able to bring in a part-time person that can just fill work on that one project and get it accomplished, and then, go on to something else somewhere else. We did that for this building. We hired an individual who wasn't part-time because they're working full-time, but their only job was this project.
It's a contract person for the contract. Yeah, I want to encourage, and you may already have this, but for a program plan, having the time phasing with the people and the costing, I think you'll find you can see what actually can be done, plus it helps with the cash flow for the treasury function. And to make sure your project managers aren't overbooked. Because you're gonna allocate a certain amount of hours, like the Lacey Building's gotta be fairly significant. Or some of the other projects are not, and then as you time phase that with the people as they go on. You can see that a little clearer, and I think you might find that benefit.
Any other questions? Good conversation. Okay, so why don't we go to the next item on the agenda, which is our work plan.
So while we're doing that, I'm gonna, so you guys can stick around if you really want to.
This is probably the most exciting part of the meeting.
Also go-
Thank you.
Run.
They put in a long day.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great work. I do want to second what Deepak was saying about the clarity and the work that was done on that this year. It was really good.
That's one of my goals, for the commission is, as a non-finance person, at least getting it all understandable for people to know what is happening and easier to read.
Thank you.
I'm glad. Okay. We moved on and we call it the work plan. We don't have a report or presentation. Commissioner asked to have this on at the last meeting, just I think to continue discussing the various items that are on the work plan and making plans for accomplishing them.
Yeah, so the ongoing stuff, the investment performance during quarterly operating budget or just review, I guess that's what projects.
That's the number 7 is what we just did.
Yeah. Number 3.
Yeah.
So, you have it marked as completed.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing, a bit awkward. That's the February 2025 update was completed. But then the May 19th, one is still to come.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the next meeting will review the budget. We'll also have the quarterly investment report. We'll have a report on the Tyler implementation. And then we'll have, we're scheduled to have a pre-meeting with the auditors. We'll check on that. That may get pushed to June. But Jesse will work that out.
So, the plan seems very front loaded. There's a lot in first half of the year and not that much in the second half.
Yeah.
Some of these things are probably not, we don't have control over, the timing is not decided by us. But it just feels like it's very unbalanced. Maybe there are things that should be moved to the second half instead of first half, to make it more balanced over the year.
I mean, we can look at it. A lot of it is related to timing. So, the budget drives a big portion of this. Of course, the audit and the ACFR, I would hope that we can review those earlier so that they're not, leading into the budget season. But a lot of them are, finance and government is related to, or is cyclical, related to the upcoming fiscal year. So some of the dates we can't adjust, but there are potentially items that we could look at moving to the second half, if it makes sense. That's when we discuss things like PERS.
Where is the audit? Meeting, but there's no audit review meeting. So the audit review meeting was last month. So when is the audit review meeting?
So the audit review meeting is, I think, the 15th.
So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit review meeting is the 15th. So the audit r
Yeah, you're right. We should. This needs to be up, number 5 needs to be updated. That was the ACFR for last fiscal year. We need to add in the ACFR for the current fiscal year, which,
Where the auditors give their required indications.
yeah. the
Oh, so
auditor-
you don't have any differences.
Yeah, so that'll happen end of this year, beginning of, end of this calendar year, beginning of next. But yeah, you're right. I need to. I agree. And that's why I was saying, perhaps we can look at, moving the audit pre-meeting, I don't want to tell you that we're gonna move the audit pre-meeting without Jesse talking with the auditors, but that may be something that could really take you.
Well, even the 5-year capital improvement, will it be, really be ready in May?
Yeah. They better be. I think we go to the council beginning of June, so it'll have,
And that's a good time.
it'll have to be ready in June, or in May, sorry.
The financial policy review, that's annual,
Yeah,
so we could do that in June or July.
we could push that to June.
What's the date of our June meeting?
Mm, June 15th.
More reminder, of what they owe us. So our new financial advisor, every time we poke them, and they're good natured about it, about what index they want to be measured against. Then they always say, well, we're still getting the portfolio in, rearranging the furniture. So at some point, it's got to be game up guy, and which index are you managing towards? We have to be comfortable that that's the right index from a duration and risk point of view, and then they need that little box in the front of their presentation to show how they did against the market index. And at some point, somebody's got to call the question, put them on that.
We'll push them on it.
Yeah, and it's not the end of the world, but I think it's time. Yeah, in about a year, right? Yeah.
So that's number 10, right? The investment policy or the investment review with number 1?
I think that's part of number 1.
Part of number 1, just that. What do they want to be measured?
What do we want to measure them against?
Yeah.
Well, that's agreed,
Yeah. Then, 11, and anything else on these first 9? And 11, nobody's ever come to the finance commission asking us for help. And then, number 12, the key performance indices. So, kind of wondering from a project standpoint, or how are we going to move forward on this?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, actually earlier today. My suggestion, I know the subcommittee's done a lot of work on it, presented to the commission. What I would suggest is, the subcommittee meets with the 2 of us, we can review it. I know the commission will express interest in including it in the budget in some form. And so we can discuss how that might look, and how we can incorporate it in, and have that for the next meeting.
Okay, so, yeah, either way, we can do it here as part of an agenda item.
Yeah.
Or we can go offline and do it.
It may be easier if we do it, before the meeting, just so that
Sure.
we're not taking a lot of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can work to set something up.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's like, 5 o'clock or 5:30 or something before the meeting.
Yeah,
Next,
or,
next meeting.
oh, I was saying even next week.
Oh, sure.
We'll find a time that the three of you are available.
Okay.
I mean, as long as it's not Wednesday.
Okay, no Wednesdays.
No, well, not just next
No,
Wednesday.
this Wednesday, okay.
Yeah, next Wednesday, I'm in Portland.
So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, that'd be great. Oh, I'll wait for an email from you then.
Yep.
You can go and have a beer and talk about
Well, you guys. We won't, but you guys.
it.
Okay,
We're good. And that's everything on the agenda, right? I just lost my screen, so I don't know. for sure.
yeah, the last
Oh, I
one,
see.
last one was just informational memo. Staff not recommending action.
Yeah, and so that one of this, I guess the voice of history, all of which is fine, but when the Tyler system is done and in, and everybody goes it's stable, then the deal with the city manager is then you'll hire somebody to come in and take a hard look at security, access controls, et cetera, on that system. But once you guys kind of raise your hand and say you're at steady state.
Isn't this cloud-based? The tool that you're using?
Yeah, Tyler's cloud-based. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a list of which applications can't be cloud-based. So that we could better understand it, because we kind of had this discussion before, and there's plenty of emulators that can go there, and a lot of the cloud stuff, the Amazon, is very good, as well as the Microsoft, and there's a lot of others, and like I said, the DoD uses them. And it just makes life so much easier. Because then you just have a series of dumb terminals, two-factor identification. You don't have to worry about that mountain of servers down in the police basement and its leakiness. And it's a good thing in general. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's just reading the memo here. So the city's developing disaster recovery fund.
Well, that's another advantage, is if you're cloud-based, all you have to do is find some connectivity somewhere. And you can have computers that go to the cellular network, and the cellular network's pretty hard to kill.
We're capable of killing it here,
Easily capable.
easily done.
So any discussions on this memo?
I don't know.
So the purpose of this memo is to do what?
Well, so at the last meeting, the commission had asked for a report on the city's audit, the IT audit that we undergo each year. I tried to include as much as I could without including too much related to specific cybersecurity issues and whatnot. I will say we're a lot better off than most agencies are. In terms of, there's a lot of agencies that, having things like, hey, maybe you should have passwords for your system.
Don't front.
That's not us.
Don't front, right? Is the Bay Area Cities Joint Powers Insurance Authority send you some sort of certificate that you passed it?
Yeah, I mean, so the memo that you have here is based on their report that they.
And you've seen it, and it passes. That's good. I like what Tony said, is once you get stable with Tyler Technologies, it would be good to have a third party go through and look at the actual written procedures. Particularly, I can't stress enough how important the backups, and that's another advantage of the cloud, is the backups don't become as critical. And what does it take for us to get to the cloud? What is that limiting? On a different note, are we still gonna move away from ADP?
Not yet.
So we're still thinking about it?
We'll see. We don't know it'll depend on, right now our focus is on getting the Tyler up and running. And then after that, we'll look at other modules that they have. If you think that it can replace, or shouldn't say replace, it's as good or better than ADP, we may consider moving to it, but as of now, there's no plans to.
The thing to consider, the reason why everybody outsources the payroll is that there's so many laws to comply with. And I'm not suggesting you have to use ADP, you can use anybody, because I disclose I am an ADP stockholder. But use anybody you want, I don't want to push them anybody's, but the reason everybody outsources is they have lawyers that go through all this, and if you bring them in-house, you're gonna have all of those expenses, plus when you get audited by the state, it's a nightmare. We got audited by the state, they just showed up in the door and say, I'm a friendly state auditor. And we brought them to the conference room, and the question she asked was, who does your payroll? We said ADP, give me a copy of your face sheet, and I'll take my action, go home. And so that, think long and hard, everybody outsources it for that reason.
We certainly would not bring in the functions that ADP are doing. It'd be if Tyler can replicate and, it better, or if there's another system. It would not be, we're gonna try to do it ourselves. You're right.
It's not good. And I understand that there's a lot of people inputting payroll. And if you ever want to bring in ADP and the people have an issue with it, I think we have enough time here to help coordinate and get that resolved and automate it. And they've got beautiful systems where you just put it all in on your phone. And then it just goes to a supervisor who looks at it and does it. It parses out in any way you want it. And so when I hear there's multiple people putting that in, you might seriously look at that.
Okay, anything else on that? Potential future agenda items?
Well, May and June look pretty stocked, so.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming up still, yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, do I hear a request for adjournment?
Motion for adjournment?
I'll second it.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.